caught up with Josh Pate from CBS Sports. Of course, everyone knows Josh. I was just joking with Josh. He's become a newsmaker now. His opinions are pretty important. These coaches, they're paying pretty close attention these days. Josh, we've asked a lot today about the college football playoff and whether or not it'll be expanded and what the sticking points are. When you take a look at where we're at with the SEC and the Big Ten seemingly butting heads, where do you think this ends up, and what do you think some of the more important facets of this story are that need to still unfold?
So the way I phrased this the other day, because I had to explain this to my mom. My mom's a very, very passive college football fan. She watches from a distance, so I've always got to break it down in, respectfully, layman's terms. Right. And I said, well, pretend like you're the kid upstairs. It's past your bedtime. That's when the parents argue downstairs. You're not supposed to hear them arguing, though. And it feels like the past few months we've as the kids have sort of been privy to watching the adults fight a little bit. And that's the SEC and that's the Big Ten. I think as you and I are standing here, Greg Sankey has already spoken today. I think the way he put it may end up being the way it goes. Because he said, look, I mean, if we don't agree, then we don't agree, and we'll fall back to a 12-team playoff. Now, you asked me this 2 months ago, I would have said there's going to be movement. Like, there's going to be change somehow, some way. Maybe I still lean that way 55-45. But, Mike, it seems more and more plausible, if not likely now, that if there's fundamental disagreement at this late stage of the game, I don't know that there's middle ground. I really do think that we may at least kick the can down the road another year of sticking with the 12-team format, which relative to some of the other formats I've seen thrown out there may be preferable.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. You know, another issue that's come up, and Kirby Smart talked about this passionately at the SEC spring meeting, said it was the biggest offseason issue, and he was talking about the transfer portal, or portals, as there has been. The SEC came out of Destin saying they wanted January 2nd to January 12th, just one portal. Big Ten has pushed back and said, hey, let's wait until after spring. Makes more sense. It's the end of the financial year. It'll make it a little bit easier on the academic transfer. Where do you think we're at on the portals, and do you agree that we need one, or do you think that two portals works well?
I can't imagine anyone who is around this game a lot thinking that two portals is the way to go. Like, one portal to me is so blatantly, obviously the way to go. Now, the semantics, the devil in the detail, if you will, is, are you going to do it in January? You're going to do it in April? I've seen the SEC's proposal. I've seen the Big Ten's proposal. I empathize with Kirby, because Kirby's sitting there thinking to himself, I'm a football coach. Okay, I'm not a professor. So with all due respect, like, my calendar is the football calendar. The Big Ten, it's their right to do this, but they're more in line of thinking of, well, we got to align things with the academic calendar. That's why it may make more sense. And I know they also think about the rev share calendar, kind of switching in July. Hey, let's line the transfer portal window up a little bit closer with that. However it goes is however it goes. But if this ends up at a stalemate where we have to stick with two portal windows, to me, it's insane. It's to the detriment of the sport. And I do hope, unlike that playoff conversation, which I don't really care about necessarily, I do hope saner heads prevail. You've got to have a compromise somewhere in the room on this. Two portal windows is so fundamentally flawed as a concept.
Yeah, it really does. It creates a lot of problems, more movement, makes it really hard for these coaches to get their rosters set and maybe not even really be fair to the kids, especially when you consider they're looking for their jobs and who's coming in and who's not. Josh, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about Georgia. You got a lot of insight. You talk a lot with these coaches on a regular basis. Georgia football has had some turnover, the quarterback position most notably, 4 new offensive linemen coming in, and yet there's still this perception, this standard, that Georgia football far and away above everyone else in the league. Is that fair to Kirby, and how do you see this season working out for the Georgia Bulldogs?
So let me hit the first thing you said. It's absolutely fair to him, because he's the top head coach in the game, and he's running the top program in the sport. As far as I'm concerned, I think many people would agree with that. If you do nothing more than eliminate Nick Saban in Alabama from having ever existed, and you look at like the rest of the history of the sport, what Kirby's doing, even including that, is elite. But if you were to erase that recent memory of, oh, we just saw this team be number one for 15 straight years, what Kirby's doing would be all the more appreciated. Here's what's normal, okay? What's normal in college football, even for elite programs, is to fluctuate a little bit. It's not supposed to be cruising altitude 38,000 feet, you never dip. That's atypical. You got conditioned to thinking that was normal because we watched Saban do it for a long time. Kirby helped him do it for a long time. What Kirby's doing, they were down last year and won the SEC, Mike. So I look at them this year. What if that's all they do, quote unquote, this year again? What if it's all they did for a 3-year period? Like you know the history of this thing. You go back to like even the Bryant era at Alabama. I mean, there was a prolonged period where the guy struggled to win 7 games for a little while, then came back and won multiple championships again. The history of the sport, absent one individual, suggests that what Kirby's suffering through is completely normal, not to mention he's doing it in a hurricane of change. And so you're the apex predator, the apex coach in an era that's been more tumultuous than any era in the history of college football. To be 1A or 1B at any given point throughout the entirety of that, I think he'll be okay. I think they're going to be all right.
Great stuff from Josh Pate. Josh, we really appreciate you coming on. Really enjoy your programming.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Appreciate you having me.
All right, man.